Welcome to session 21. And now we have Eduardo Rolon, who's a principal of his own practice, Eduardo Rolon Arquitecto. And I think I probably said that wrong once again, but my Puerto Rican pronunciation is probably well and truly off, and I apologize for that. Now, when I spoke to Eduardo about presenting and he told me about this topic, I actually thought this topic is completely fitting and really, really important in the process chain of how practices implement processes and templates. Now, the presentation that I gave on 2020 on templates, I talked a lot about the ability for, if you develop a template that's like a Ferrari, there's very little chance that most of the people would be actually able to drive it to its capacity. They wouldn't be able to get out of first gear. And it's about finding a template that essentially works to the kind of lowest common denominator. And then that's probably the least skilled person within your organization. So I really am going to look forward to seeing what Eduardo proposes in this session in terms of what is a good template for your students and for beginners so that it's not overwhelming. And for those that develop their templates for their practices, maybe it's time to sit back and think, what are we doing, or how do we help those that are new within our organization to not be completely overwhelmed and crash the car, essentially. So I hope that all of you template makers out there and BIM managers within the practice take a really strong note of this presentation. So take it away, Eduardo.
Hello, this is session 21, a simple template for student and beginners. My name is Eduardo Rolon, and I've been teaching Archicad to students since version 8. What we're gonna discuss today is basically how to simplify the template that should, in order for new users or beginners to be able to make Archicad easier for them to use. One of the benefits of Archicad is that we can import a lot of items real easily, so from different files. So that means that basically items like objects or created objects, we can import them using favorites and settings. All those elements down here and the elements that we use to define different properties for the views can be imported relatively easily from Archicad. That means that instead of having one huge template for everybody to access at the office, we can have two templates. A simplified template that people, regular users or beginners and or students can use to start their projects, and as the project progresses and they start to get more comfortable with the program, they can then import the extra information as needed. For students, basically, it's going to be basically the regular Archicad template. At the office, one of the items I like to use is having a master template that nobody has access to except myself. And by access, I mean that nobody else can edit it. So they can bring stuff from there using Attribute Manager, but they should not edit the information. And that sometimes simplifies the process of how to work. So I'm going to try to sum up about a week's class, Archicad class, into about 30 minutes. So that means I have to move a little bit fast. Anyway, this is the interface of 26. One of the reasons I decided to do this session is that in 26 we started to have folders. So folders help us out with a lot of items into organizing. So I don't have to be too radical on when I establish my template. Since because I teach at the university, I usually take for about 45 students per year to use Archicad. And that means I have to start with a template every single time. So that means I have to reevaluate all these items. And there's some stuff that has been lost along the way that I would like to have back. But basically, let's get on the system. So first item I tell my students, like, if you didn't make it or you didn't define it, you can erase it. So that means that basically every single item that we have here can be deleted. It was defined by somebody else. It was not by us. We're starting to learn the program, so we need to understand how to do this instead of using the ones that are pre-built. So let's delete those, and everything goes. Second item I like to tell my students is, like, having the white background means that when I'm teaching them and I'm looking over their shoulders doing stuff, if they have the white background, that means that they don't have the template they're working on. So I usually tell them just to change the color of the background. There's other reasons for doing that besides white background is not necessarily good for your eyes. But basically, if I look over and see a white background, that means that somebody started the project with the wrong template. So where we did that, it's under view, grid and editing training options, grid some backgrounds. So I'm gonna change my colors here. And I'm going to change the other color. And one of the items I really liked about Archicad that was taken removed was the grid. One of the nice things about the grid is that it will give you a good feedback about paper size while you're working, and it might help you to see mistakes when they happen before they become too difficult to fix. So turn the construction grid, turn the backgrounds. So I have my grid, and I see that since the scale is 1/4 and each square is 4 feet, so that means as printed, this was going to be at 1 inch wide in the final paper size. One of the items that I really do not understand is the origin. The origin in Archicad is extremely important. Most of these programs having the origin defined as an object in relation to your project is very important. I usually place a grid here, structural grid element here to control it. And if we compare the reason this change or the extra stuff is there is I think the concept was it's easier for somebody just to come in and remove everything that we don't need from the template and start using it. But if we start using, that's our purpose, then we might lose a lot of time at the beginning. And how do you remove something that you don't know what you need? So the usual item there is that people do not remove stuff. They keep them. Anyway, so what do we need to remove? Well, one of the items we're going to work down here, these are the items that define the views. So Archicad is good on showing the information that we need to work with. The first one is the layers. So layers, we have layer combinations, and we have layers model views, and we have the folder view and the list view, the traditional view. And I'll just create a new folder, Z, so that it goes down the list for reference. And that means that everything that's going to be there, people should not use. So I'll grab all these folders, and there they go. So if I could lock them, I'll lock them, and I'll keep them unavailable to add objects. So everything is going to be locked there. So it's when I place an object that has that layer, Archicad is gonna sound a warning. It's gonna give me a warning that the layer is locked. So that means that I can redefine the layer, and I should not make mistakes. So Now we need a folder for office for the student. I usually tell the students just to use their initials, but we can use your office name, etc. So we got this folder, and everything that we're going to use for the office is going to be there. And of my concept, I usually like to have at least the minimum amount of layers as possible. I try not to be religious about it, but if I have a small quantity of layers, it's easier to find errors and mistakes. So, and in this case, I'm just going to do some basic layers. Architectural structure. I tell my students that basically structure. Every single item that is walls, columns, beams, slabs, it's going to be there. So if we need to remove it, if we're going to subdivide it, then we can subdivide it. And unsubdividing elements in Archicad is really easy. So we don't have to worry if eventually we need to get the columns separate. Just select them all in 3D, and it's relatively easy to edit. So structure equipment, and let's say this is traditional layer. We're going to have dims as one layer, not because you shouldn't have other items, but because people expect to have that layer this as existed. So all this will go in our layer, and that's going to be our folder. So we're going to keep building layers here as we need them. Avoid also general layers or stuff to be defined. On the layer combinations down here, we can shift click and we're gonna remove all of these. So now for this layer, all the items are gonna be on, and all these items are gonna be locked and off. So that means that all visible logs is gonna be all these items. Everything else is gonna be hidden as of now. And now, what do we need? But we just need A01, that's floor plans. Section 1 of my construction document set, and new, that's O2, elevations, sections. And we keep this as minimal as possible. It's easier to check 3 items than to check 20. And we're gonna finish with around 5 or 10 layer combinations as needed. But we want to minimize the decision process. We want people to get comfortable using the software and just placing elements into whatever folder layers is needed. And that's that for that one. Items that we missed, there's some buttons here that were removed in 26 that we really missed them. Select all on and off are needed. But they're gone. So hopefully they're bringing them back. Then here, partial structure display, there's no options here that we can edit, so we can skip over that one. Let's take pens and colors. Pens and colors, as an old user, items that we need to understand is like first row, we'll keep the colors because most objects in Archicad use those colors. So second row, I like to change the colors so they have a buffer. These items, I like to change their line weight to the smallest one. And we also need to understand that this pen number 91 is very important for US template because all the US objects that have white as their setting use this one. So we should not change this one. International has 19, and obviously International 19, then they decided to make US version. So they said, okay, we need to choose numbers. Oh, let's choose line 1. So we can remove every single of these colors and just keep the necessary ones. And it's the same reason. We want to make them as minimum amount of questions or evaluation as we need. So what I like to do is just grab these first 5, turn them black, grab these first lower 5, black. These ones go to white, go to white. And that means overhead lines, uncut lines, cut lines. And then we have thick black pens, and we have white. If we eventually, when we need for colors for our global overrides, then I'll just start adding colors as I want and start keeping a small amount of colors here just to override things. With global overrides, basically we don't have to separate color objects by color in Archicad anymore. So we have everything black if we need, and then have colors as highlights with graphic overrides. So store as dash, so it's become first in the line, my initials. So okay, so and then we can keep both these two. We can keep them around, but we know this is the one we use for pen settings. Eventually, I need to edit all this stuff, but we're not going to have much time doing this. Okay, so those are the first two. Then we'll go to model view options. And model view options, same thing. We have a lot of items. We cannot remove every single one of them, but we can shift click, select all of them, and keep always in unlock, say delete anyway. And the main problem with model view options is that it doesn't have a save view. So when I change items here and I said I wanted this, it automatically saves them. The main issue with that is that it is obviously very easy to make a mistake. Once you change this, then this change. And if this is applied to different views, then you need to remember what you did back. And this is different. And if we go back to Archicad 19, design, document, model view options. Here we had a table that when we started changing items, every item that would change, it will switch to custom. And when it switched to custom, then I had to store it. So that's what I'm saving by not having this is creating possible places where you have to make mistakes. So you need to keep backups of those items. So once I do that, unless I hit store, then I can save it. So here, the reason to have that one is then C backup. So that if I change something, then I duplicate this, copy this one, and edit it. So this is one of the least changes that I'm happy with. Then we have we can do this. The same thing happened with renovation filters. We don't need all this. So remove everything and just keep the ones you need. Basically, you'll need 4, all on, existing, demolition, and plant status. So you can remove those. And we have the oldest table here, which are project preferences, basically dimensions, calculations, units, and all the items. We have a lot of items here that we don't need. But the trick here is very simple. This table hasn't changed since Archicad 8, as far as I know. So when you change it, it will switch to custom, store as, dash, E. And the trick for this one, it doesn't select. I have to delete all the stuff. The trick for this one is that when you figure out you need to change, and because if we change it now and we say store as, right now we cannot choose any of the names. So the trick is, and this is an old trick, is that once you open here, the first before changing anything, you'll click rename, Command C to copy it. Okay, then you change the stuff that you want and figure it out, and then you hit store as, and when it asks you the name, you just paste it since you copy it, and it will give you an option to overwrite it. I have no idea how I changed that, but that's an old trick to do those items. Okay, so these are the basic model view settings that we want to remove and keep simplified. Those, then we need to go into options, and then we go with the construction elements. So we have layers here, that's the player. Then we have lines. And with lines, the basic trick is we could remove all these symbol lines because most of them are not going to be used by students. So I tell them just to check and edit, and so I can delete it, and I delete and replace. But since the object is empty, so I can remove them. And the other thing I want to on these items, that means I have to go delete by one after the other. But that's where we have the attribute manager, and with attribute manager, we can go here to lines and remove the ones that we don't need. So I'll remove the ones that are symbols if I want. These are easy to ignore since there are not that many. So, but anyway, the other thing I teach my students is do not keep dash long dotted. So if you decide that dash triple is going to be the line type for your grid elements, select it, duplicate it, create a duplicate, and just assign this grid line. So we don't have to, even if we use favorites, we don't have to think about it. Just grid lines, and we assign a name. So you choose by name, and there's a definition. We don't choose by the type. Since we're an attribute manager, this is one of the, you'll see these numbers, and these are the settings, the index numbers of the elements. And there's an old trick here. Archicad, you'll see that it starts with 1, it goes down to 50. Mine is 51. And the trick is that we want to reindex the ones we create. I have to apply the settings. So go here, apply all. I'll need to reindex this, and usually available is 52. I'll go to 100, 500. So what that does this mean? That anything after 50 and before 500 means that it was copied or created by a copy paste. It's not mine. All my, once I have a 500, if I decide that dash line, let's see, dash dot, let's just grab the first one, dash, duplicate. See that it changed to 501. So this is going to be overhead lines. So as when I create, they will go after 500, but when I import or when I copy paste, they will come with their number, so I can figure out what changed and what was brought over. Same thing can be done with fills, surfaces, building materials, etc. So main issue right here is that we don't have folders. We cannot edit folders in this attribute manager. But the best thing about this attribute manager is that we can compare two different files and side by side, and we can decide what we're going to do. See all 500. See this 54B1. That means these were imported by for some reason that I don't know. They should be erased. So that will give me a warning when I'm looking at a project. So Attribute Manager, you don't need to be afraid of it, but you have to work easy with it. These are old pen settings. So apply and close. And so we go down through the list. Lines, fields. We have these are fields. There are no folders here. One line item, we have 2 columns. It will show us. So instead of having people choose, then I will create the ones for the office, duplicate, and have those for them to choose those. Then I'll have those for reference eventually. And the same thing goes for composite, pens and color, surfaces. Building materials are easy. We have folders, and we apply the same logic as with layers. So we go here, new folder for reference. C for reference. And we'll drop all these down here. And then we'll create our folder for the office. And we'll populate that with the information that we need to choose. And that's going to be, let's see, and complete, duplicate. This is the duplicate. Move that one to my folder and rename it. I'm going to keep that one there. So I have a short, we don't need a whole amount of materials. We just keep it short and sweet. We just keep doing that, and we'll have eventually basic template. Okay, so next option that we need to, same thing will happen with the surfaces. This one's kind of like bothers me a little bit, the scrolling, and not necessarily the scrolling. It's like, if we go here, for the settings of the colors, various overrides, you'll see that we have this list. And this list is a little bit different than what we used to have before in 25 and before, that we grabbed an option and we have multiple columns, so we could see every single material down here, and we could get a feel of what we had and how to use it. And right now, since we have a list, then it's easier just to do the same thing. Just dump every single one of these in a reference layer and just copy them, duplicate, and minimize the items. Okay, so next item on the list, and eventually you'll keep this simple. It's like we don't have all the items here. So let's open the organizer and we'll do the same here. So that means that all these views were not designed by us. So we can remove every single one of those, and we'll start creating our folders as we need it. Floor plans, elevations, and we'll start putting the elements where they go. And we'll do the same. You should do the same with the layouts. Those we can erase every single one of those, especially since you are in your office. We don't need to have every single one of those here. And the same for the publisher sets. We don't need to be afraid that we might need them back, because the only reason to bring them back is you can see why they were brought in the template. So remove everything that is not needed as part of your items of your project. And the other items I forgot. We have some categories here. This looks like it's deprecated, so eventually these are gonna disappear, so we can ignore them. That is okay. We don't need to work with them. And what else? Oh, then we need to go into work environment. And the work environment, what we need to edit is basically the info box. The info box is the list when you select an item that, in this case, it shows horizontal up on top. So it will show you all the settings of that particular tool. So all the settings here that I can scroll through are part of the info box of the wall tool. If I double click it, it will give me these items, and then it will show us the information. But this is the basic info box that we want. And I forgot I have edited this one. So let me reset it. Okay. Let's see. This is the setting. So walls, see that the wall is hidden and unlocked. So if I decide to place a wall, it will give me a warning, choose layer, and then I will choose the layer that I want. And I have to turn on the layers here, and we'll go here, structure, and it will let me do it. So that's the warning I want to avoid placing elements on the wrong layer. But work environment, what we need to edit is very simple. We'll go here, we'll go to the info box, and we can go in and we can define the tool settings. But the info box, what do we need? For the wall tool, it's very simple. I don't need anything to do with that structural analysis, 2D member type, 3D edges. But ID and properties eventually are going to be very important. ID and properties and classifications. Office-wise, these are very important. I like to place them above the layers because once all the other stuff can be controlled by favorites, but these two I like to keep track of constantly, so that once we have them, they go in front, and I can see that my properties for the element ID, and it shows here as well. So these on these items, these elements, having them front, and especially if you have the info box instead of the top, which is not the best way for in my case, because you have to scroll back and forth. Then you'll keep them in mind, and you will keep items that you know that eventually you're gonna learn. So if you're doing this if I was doing this for students, I would ignore it. I would tell them to turn off as much stuff as they can. But in an office setting, I will place these on top for every single element here that I need, so that I get used to the idea of controlling element IDs and the classifications, which are as important as the layers, because this information is critical during construction documents. So, and eventually, these are settings that should be edited, and just to make it easy. So it is okay for things to be easy. It is okay for things to be available that you can see without issues. You don't have to have things to be so complex. The other item we need to edit is the favorites. Window favorites. Let me put I changed my shortcuts. So favorites, we have folders here for editing, and I tell everybody just to delete every single one of them. These are not needed. You'll get full objects that you need. as you need, and you can organize them by folders. One of the strange things about having folders is that here is that we can filter, since we can filter by tools, 3D previews. It will also supposed to only show me what do I have to. I can filter by active tool only. So once I have that, it should only show me the items that have elements. But here, it's weird because everything is hidden by folder. So I select a column, and then it will show me the folder of columns. So but down here is design. So it is a strange implementation that we have to go and show. So see, that's the folder. I have to double click. Before that, you could have them all shown up, and it will filter them without issues. So, but anyway, same thing. Favorites. Just grab every single one of these and delete them, remove it, because eventually, if we need anything, we can import the ones we need if somebody just did a good definition. So I think that my time's up. Sorry that I talked fast, but I'm trying to sum up two university relations, two university classes sessions into a 30-minute overview on having on templates. So if the last point is you can keep it simple. Templates should not be only for power users. If you buy a template, don't use that. Just import stuff from that template to your Office template. Do not start project necessarily with that template. Use it more as a reference. And the same thing, templates should be more reference than a starting point, or you can have a basic template as a starting point and then have a master reference template from where you have every single item there that you can improve, and that should make it easier for new hires, or in my case for new students. So thank you, and I'll answer questions now as we see them.